Right, the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have roll call?
Ryan?
Here.
Sanfilippo? Here. Kirstensen is absent. McCarty is absent. Madigan? Here. Turner?
Here.
Henning? Here.
Okay. Do we have any announcements?
Yes, Madam Chairperson, with regards to any updates, just want to let you know that the Kidwell case, that's the property at Drum Court, the recreational vehicle, we did recommend approval for the requested site plan that was approved by the village board at the last meeting.
Thank you. And now we need approval of the April 6, 2022 Planning and Zoning Board meeting as presented.
Make a motion, we accept the notes as presented.
Second. Any discussion? Okay.
Ryan?
Yes.
Sanfilippo?
Yes.
Madigan?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Henning?
Abstain. Okay. We move on to public comments. Do we have anyone tonight that would like to
Nope.
say anything? No. Okay. And any old business? Okay, then let's move on to new business. PZB 22-03, consideration of a request for a variance from the limitation on fence height and parking lot placement of the village's form-based code for the Antioch Police Department's proposed parking lot, located at 427 Orchard Street, PIN number 02-084-02007.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairperson. Again, for the record, let's record reflect that this is a public hearing being heard to a public notice in accordance with all state statutes and ordinances. Madam Chairperson, this matter comes before you this evening by the village of Antioch for a variance from the village's form-based code for a proposed new parking lot for the Antioch Police Department. Specifically, the village is seeking variance and also site plan review for a proposed parking lot. I guess regards to context, you can see behind me is the actual Antioch Police Department, which is located immediately to the west of this property. This property is approximately 3/4 of an acre. It was actually purchased specifically for the construction of a secured parking lot for the Antioch Police Department. At one time, it did contain a historic house that was demolished maybe 3 years ago. The property has been vacant. You can see the property currently is generally has extensive tree canopy. Overall, the variance, what is the variance for? Well, the variance that's being proposed, just for the record, the form-based code generally has a requirement that all parking lots should generally be located in the rear of buildings. Generally, good urban design in downtowns generally requires parking to be secondary, and therefore the ordinance does require that parking lots be located in the rear 50% of a lot. Therefore, that the first variance is seeking relief from this requirement. Second variance is the form-based code has a requirement that fences be no more than 48 inches. For security purposes, the proposed fence that's being proposed for this site would be 8 feet. So with regards to context, it's always important to look at context whenever we look at a form-based code. A variance. So going to the property, to the north of the property is the United Methodist Church. As you can see behind me, to the east is a multifamily existing apartment building. To the south is commercial, it's a Dunkin' Donuts strip center. And to the west, as we discussed, is the Antioch Police Department. In accordance with section 10-2-8, before a variance can be granted, there are certain findings of facts that the commission must actually review and the commission must concur with. The first, I apologize because I cannot print out the staff report, so I'm going from my phone. Oh, could I use that? These are my eyes. So the first is the variance is in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the zoning ordinance. Again, the proposed variation, while not consistent with the form-based code as it relates to urban design, we do not believe there would be any negative impact. We do not believe that the proposed location of the parking lot would have any immediate negative impact. While again, it's a variance from the form-based code as it relates to good urban design. We do believe that there's ways to mitigate any potential negative impact. I'll kind of walk you through those mitigation efforts to minimize any impact on this proposed parking lot on the character of this area. Frankly, to be frank, this area is clearly, while it's downtown, it's clearly auto-oriented. Perhaps that will change in the future, but obviously across the street is a strip center with parking in front. Obviously, the area to the west is the Antioch Plaza, which was developed back in the 1960s with parking in front. So the proposal, while consistent with the existing character, may not be consistent with our future hopes to develop this area in a more urban sensitivity, urban form. But again, based on what I'll talk as it relates to the future plans for enclosing the property and more importantly, the landscape plan, we believe there's ways to mitigate any type of negative impact from an urban design perspective. The second requirement for a variance is the plight of the owners due to the unique circumstances, and thus the strict enforcement of zoning orders result in practical difficulties or impose exceptional hardships due to special and unusual conditions. Again, strict enforcement of the form-based code would prohibit the village of Antioch, or more importantly, the Antioch Police Department, to use this parking lot to have a secured parking lot for their vehicles. And therefore, the fundamental purpose of this lot was purchased was to construct a parking lot. So to actually strictly enforce a form-based code would make it impossible to utilize this property, or would be practical generally to utilize this property for a parking facility. So it would generally defeat the whole purpose of why the property was purchased by the village of Antioch. So there we would submit that there is an exceptional case here, unique. Obviously, the proposed site, which I'm not really discussed, is really generally going to be used for security. The officers need a secured area to store their vehicles. Currently, they're storing their vehicles actually in property that's not owned by the Antioch. It's actually leased property from the United Methodist Church. That property is not secured. There's no perimeter fence area. And based on that fact, for the security of the officers, the village purchased this property and has been working with our engineer to design an actual proposed parking lot. I'll review that design as we go through the site plan review. A third finding of fact is required for any variance to the property cannot yield a reasonable use of permitted only under the conditions allowed under the form-based code. Again, as I've already discussed, while we do not control the property behind the Antioch Police Station, the only way we can actually construct a parking lot on this property is ask for relief from the form-based code requirements. And finally, the variance in granite will not alter the essential character of the locality of the area. Again, we do not believe this proposed site proposal would have any negative impact on the overall character. As we speak, the old proposed parking lot location would generally be consistent with existing character, which is auto-oriented, and may not be consistent, as I've already outlined, in the future character of the area. Our hopes is to have some new infill development along Orchard in the future, which would again reflect a more urban pattern. But currently, this proposed site plan does reflect the current auto-oriented character of Orchard Street. Now, with regards to the site plan review, direct your attention to the screen. You'll see that the proposed parking lot itself is generally, again, a little more than a half acre. The applicant, we're actually proposing 50 new parking spaces, which will be used for storage of, for storage of police vehicles. The area will be fully enclosed for security purposes. What we're proposing is to incorporate a boundary or a perimeter fence of 8 feet. It would be a decorative aluminum fence. We're trying to provide a little more character to the parking lot itself. So it'll be an 8-foot security fence constructed with aluminum. There is a proposed spec in your packet that really shows the general character and design of that 8-foot fence. My staff report says 6 feet, but for the record, based on my discussions today with the engineer and police department, it's actually 8 feet. Again, the form-based code has a requirement that fences can't be more than 48 inches. So clearly, the police department is seeking relief from that requirement. As it relates to the actual site plan, there's actually extensive canopy of trees. A lot of those trees are basically are not indigenous to this area, and what have sometimes referred to scrub trees. There are some trees there which are basically indigenous and in relatively good condition. I think there's one plan to maybe try to preserve a couple of the trees on the perimeter, but for the most part, the property will be cleared to allow for the construction of a parking lot. Photometric plan, you have a photometric plan in your packet. The village's engineer did prepare the photometric plan. It doesn't comply with the village's photometric requirements. Obviously, you have residences or apartments to the immediately to the east of this property. So based on the photometric plan, the foot candle illumination level does not exceed the half-foot candle illumination level at the property line requirement. The property actual design of the lighting standard in the residents to the east will not be able to see any light source. If there are any lighting issues, staff will work with the residents located to an apartment going to the east to mitigate any type of negative impact on lighting. Now, with regards to the landscape plan, staff did prepare a landscape plan, which generally shows there is probably a quarter of an acre where they actually at one time there was a historic blue house there that was in very bad condition. It was demolished. So based on our plans, you see there's a fairly good size piece that with regards to the parking lot will be set back itself. So there'll be a small green area. Staff is generally proposing that a landscape plan be incorporated. Not only specifically we're proposing 4 ornamental trees and a combination of over 30 plus shrubs. I think there are some opportunities to work with the Public Works Department to plant some perennials in this area. We're generally proposing landscaping on 3 sides to the area, of course, along the actual fence line, as you see, also along the eastern perimeter and along the western perimeter, which is adjacent to the existing parking lot for the main parking lot for the Antioch Police Department. So again, this proposed parking lot, just for the record, is not going to be used for the public. It will be basically fully secured. As you can see in the plan, the entrance is actually behind the police department, specifically for security purposes. Only requested 1 access point. They do not want 2 access points. They do not want an access point on Orchard Street. So the main access point into this lot will be from the rear of the police station. So that provides some landscape opportunities to incorporate extensive landscaping in the lot. In addition, one concept the staff thought there will be maybe opportunities, phase B somewhere down the road, for some type of maybe police memorial or some type of future memorial or for the police department, but that's for later discussions. But there is a small green area, as you can see, which will provide opportunities to do some creative design there. So as in some substance, we would submit the applicant has complied with the required findings of facts for variance, and they have complied with requirements for site plan review with the required 2 stipulations. So with that, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Ryan?
The only question I have, a general one in nature, is that we're looking at this and the village breaks the ordinances and we try to enforce the ordinances, and now we're coming back for the village to say we can't live by our own rules, we want a variance to the rules, to the ordinances that we have here in town. And that's one issue I have is there's no way of doing this so that we can't comply with our own ordinances.
That's correct. There's really, I think, this is basically, I mean, that's actually a good point. It's clearly contravention of our long-term plan for this area. It's, to be honest, it's probably not consistent, it's clearly not consistent with the form-based code or creating a more downtown environment, okay? But there really is no alternative. If you have to have a parking lot, the property was specifically purchased to construct a parking lot. You can't set back the parking lot. You wouldn't have to make it probably only third the size of what's being proposed. That clearly would not provide the necessary parking for the Antioch Police Department. So they're really, just from a functional perspective, I don't know if there's any alternative. So, and in regards to the requirement for a form-based code, regards to fencing itself, we would not allow this type of fence from a private developer. We generally would discourage, obviously any developer could ask for a variance in the future, and that would be for future discussions, but that's the best answer I can provide.
Okay, that's all I have.
Ms. Sanfilippo?
So my only, did you say that there were pictures of the fencing that they're using?
I think
Or
there's a design,
Is it-
last
is it-
page of the engineering plans.
I
It's
don't-
basically
That's
would be
what I
a,
was looking for.
yeah, there should be it would be a black, black aluminum fence.
Okay,
Now, one of the changes, that
and
based
then
on.
I'm trying to see, are there some kind of brick column? Do
Yeah,
those match
well,
the?
originally,
permit?
whenever you let planners do landscape plans, sometimes they incorporate design elements. So I know there was some expressed concern by the administration department, brick pilasters would be maybe too expensive
Okay,
and would not make sense. So I guess I'm asking, the administration department is asking for relief to simply remove all the brick pilasters and to simply incorporate decorative aluminum fence. To be fair, there would be extensive landscaping. So at least in the summertime, some of those brick pilasters would be hidden by the ornamental trees or final species that we choose. So those are really more for, you can see the illustration behind me, you can see there's four pilasters or four
Right.
brick columns. Actually, it's also reflected in the actual original engineering plans. There's some concern by Public Works that the height was too high and would not be consistent with the character of this area. And there's also an expense, whenever you're talking about brick and you would have to put cement foundations on these columns. So to mitigate expense, this administration has asked us to remove the brick columns,
okay, so it's gonna be like a black
aluminum fence,
decorative,
aluminum fence,
8 feet high without the.
without the pilasters, without the brick.
So silver, like a silver color, right? When you say aluminum.
Black.
Black,
Black.
I think it's black, yeah. I kind of liked because I thought that tied it in with the building, so now I'm not sure how I feel about the.
But that's what the commission is here for. The commission,
Yeah.
obviously that's a design
Yeah,
issue. We can, it's obviously your prerogative to request that those brick pilasters
Yeah.
incorporated into the height. If if you're not comfortable with the 8 feet, I think the police department's asked for 8 feet.
yeah,
I think there's concern
And
that
there's
the
gonna be-
pilasters are too high.
yeah,
You can't, it would look awkward to have a 6-foot brick column and an 8-foot decorative fence. That would just,
right.
from a design perspective, it would look odd.
Mhm.
I think, 6 feet would probably be more in character of what I typically see. I mean, I've seen many decorative fences with brick columns,
Yeah,
whether 8 feet is too high, that's really for discussion.
and they have to have the 8 feet? Because originally I know the report said 6
I
feet,
did,
now
yeah.
now it's 8 feet?
It's 8 feet for every.
Okay. Okay, something to think about.
Mr. Turner? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Madigan.
So a couple questions. So, you referenced that they purchased this lot with the intention of turning it into a parking lot. Knowing, because the code hasn't changed,
Correct.
did they expect some type of variance? Were they promised anything or,
No.
because why would, again, the intent wasn't to get approval back then to put a future parking lot on it, how could they expect us now to look at this and say, okay, 3 years later, they only have this option? Well, they knew back then, 3 years ago, that was going to be the only option, and it wasn't gonna meet the village code back then. So I'm not sure why they would.
I can't speak. I wasn't
No,
involved.
yeah, no,
wasn't
it's
involved.
something to consider
Planning board
again.
wasn't involved in the purchase or the future use of this property.
And then, I understand that the safety of the officers is very important, I understand that, but what do other towns do? Because I don't, I mean, in Grace Lake, they pretty sure that they're parked outside.
I can't speak to what other police departments do. I don't know if all, I mean, clearly our parking right now as we speak, our police department, their vehicles are not secured. One of the concerns they had was they have a secure area for the officers. So I can't speak to what other departments do. That may be more appropriate to have police chief here explain that. But I mean, just to be, I can reflect what the police chief said. The police department, he's made quite clear that it's imperative that they have this. This is actually budgeted. This is actually going out to bid. This is actually in the capital plan. So the plan, why it's coming for the commission, there's plans to proceed with the construction of this relatively quickly.
I'm also concerned about the structure of the fencing really sticking out, and again, we're really trying to be specific on code in downtown, and now, I just, I think it's gonna stick out like a sore thumb, to be honest with you. And I think it really has to be considered. I mean, all things have to be considered, obviously, but that would be a concern. That's all I have.
Mr. Turner.
As usual, I have a couple comments and a couple questions for you. So I think just in general, the way I feel, at least in the community, the last 2 years have taught us a lot, and a lot has changed. Where 2 years ago, I wouldn't have thought we needed secure area for our police officers. They'd be fine parked on a church parking lot, but recent events have taught us differently. And I have seen other police departments that have looked into it where they do have more secure areas, not all of them. But I don't have a problem with us wanting to make a secure area for our police department. And yes, while it does go against, code, I think that it is also, something that I personally myself could bite onto. That said, where my questions kind of come in is, I think what Commissioner Madigan was just referring to, I also really feel strongly about when you're driving downtown here, or Orchard, right, right in front of the police station. I feel like we have an opportunity here to really make sure that the landscape design is according to plan, and maybe even beef up if need be. I don't think this is going to be that big of a deal personally if we really put a nice looking, very aggressive landscape design where it's almost, covering the entire fence, you almost can't see it. Also, I think you're going to get less pushback from the multifamily unit there if you're really putting a nice pick buffer there as well. So I guess looking for the approval here, you guys state in number 1 and number 2, compliance with the requirements of the village engineer, and then compliance with the requirements of the Antioch Fire Protection District. So under the village engineer there, is that also, is that where the landscape design comes in?
No, that's for staff. I mean, actually, I did a landscape plan, so the concept, if I can walk you through it.
Yeah.
You can see the fence line. I'm actually proposing that the fence line be pushed back a little bit to provide more landscaping. But what I'm proposing is the incorporation. I think there's 2 opportunities that, there's, I think, a plan A, which basically extensive landscaping along the fence line. So that would incorporate a minimum of 2 ornamental trees, which would, there's probably, that would, you generally typically will plant those 30 feet apart. They'll get some width and height. So 2 ornamental trees, which will give nice seasonal color. And then an incorporation of extensive shrubs, so those could be a combination. I'm proposing the dogwoods, which would get, they're a hedge. So with time, those hedges will probably get at least, theoretically 4 or 5 feet, 6 feet maybe, be able to go up that high. So that would provide almost basically a hedge, since a full hedge along the fence line with maturity. I mean, obviously, the challenge landscaping, it has to mature. But with time, there will be a natural hedge along the fence line, where the fence line would itself kind of disappear, especially with the black aluminum, the fence would disappear. And then I think there's an opportunity to maybe also incorporate some different variety of shrubs, and also things like perennials. Typically, the village, one of the things that we've also been challenged, Public Works has been challenged with, regards to shrubs and perennials. I do think there's an opportunity to do extensive perennials here on at least 3 sides, which would be almost like a little green area. This is not really going to be a park, obviously, but it's a low pocket green area, which I think would hopefully address your concerns.
Yeah, I think just in general, the 8 foot seems high, right? But then at the same time, I feel like I could jump a 6-foot fence myself, right? So I understand the 8 feet there, but again, an aggressive landscape plan, I think would really kind of bring it all together there. The fire protection district, the requirements there, what is that alluding to?
That's just, this is standard requirement. So because it's going to be just really very limited access really for the police department, I don't foresee any issues with the Antioch Fire Department. Obviously, the main gate in the rear will be wide enough for a fire truck. If there for some reason will be an emergency or issue.
So it's just code, it has nothing to do with the order of the actual fire department. So,
no.
got it, understood. Okay. Last comment, photometric layout looked great. Thank you for that.
So Michael, I have a couple questions. Because, so this black decorative fence, how do you define decorative?
Well, it's not a cyclone fence. It's not a typical
So it's
industrial.
like a black solid, black,
It's a black solid aluminum fence, so it's not being proposed to be wrought iron because of obviously cost. But typically for security 8-foot fence, we just basically do a, either just a typical industrial looking fence with slats or fabric. We're proposing a decorative aluminum fence. So that's typically a step up from what's typically required to secure a parking lot.
I too have issue with an 8-foot black fence in this particular area. I do think that, anytime, the police department, if it was a contiguous property, to be able to purchase that, even if they didn't know what they were gonna do with it, was a good idea. And I do remember the blue house there, it was horrible. I mean, it needed to come down. But is there any way, I think there's gotta be some brick in there. I just don't see how we can have this black solid fence, and no matter what with dogwoods or whatever, this is gonna take some time. And it really is right in downtown. And when you talk about Toft Avenue and redoing Toft Avenue, it's all right there. So to me, either the brick columns have to stay, or maybe a brick facade, brick in the front and then black in the back. I don't know, but just a solid black 8-foot fence
I mean,
is,
it's a lot of fencing, it's a lot of fencing
Yeah.
around the whole, I don't think I'm comfortable either without
without the brick.
yeah.
Well, there's ways to do it. There's ways I did talk about all brick, but they looked at it like I had some challenges.
Yeah.
I think that-
So because you could mitigate, you could put actual, ivy or actual plants on brick. But again, you're talking about a serious impact on the budget. If you talk about an all brick fence, whether 6 feet, you're talking about that's a serious, substantial increase.
So what if it was just the front of it that faced orchards?
That's what I'm talking about. Just
Oh,
doing all
just the
brick,
front?
it'll be substantial.
Okay.
Do a 6-foot or an 8-foot brick wall. There's all kinds of great design things you can do with a brick wall. You can make it almost like an English garden, but I don't think that's where the village is coming from. Just cost. it would probably be, I mean, I don't have the numbers, but we had to do a foundation, and obviously, it's very expensive.
Were the pilasters all the way around, or were they just in the front originally?
Just in the front.
Okay, can we go back to that, having those?
We can have, obviously, you could have a stipulation, on the actual plan for the record shows 4 brick
Right.
pilasters.
Right,
So technically, you don't have to do anything, it'll just be.
I just thought it helped to break up the black fencing, especially in this area, which is so close to downtown, and we're working so hard to sort of. I just don't know if I'm comfortable with it. And 8 feet is very high, that's a lot of fencing, you know, right in downtown, close to the downtown, so. I don't know how the other, you know. And I would like to see the pilasters.
Well, I just feel that if it's gonna be all black and there's not going to be any brick, then it's gotta be 6 feet, it can't be 8 feet. I just think that's too high, I mean, it's gonna look like a prison, it's just gonna, you know,
I mean, I would like to see the pilasters and keep it at 6 feet.
That-
personally,
It's
but-
the prerogative of the stipulation.
Yeah,
Easily add a
but I
stipulation.
don't know how everyone else feels, so they're okay with the 8 feet.
Mr. Ryan, do you have any other comment?
Well, 2. One is, we got the grass area out in front. Why not make that into a little park area with some benches or something in there so people can, you know, we're trying to make the police community friendly.
Right.
And then we create this grass area, we don't even put a bench or anything in there that people come and sit down or use the grass area for anything. It's like,
Well, that's why I propose,
Oh,
you
that's
know,
our grass
some type of memorial. So a lot of police departments do have memorials.
Yeah.
And that would provide an opportunity, you know, not to proposing that as phase 1.
Yeah.
But somewhere down the road, it almost draws your eyes to you can see
Yeah.
on the left, the concept of a memorial of some type. And that's why I think it's so important to get the fence designed right.
Yeah.
We don't want a memorial for the parking lot, but it would be appropriate to have a memorial within the garden.
Yeah.
So if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there would be opportunities right next to the police department.
Yeah.
But that's not within the proposed budget, so I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, and I have no idea whether it be support. I've not discussed that with the police department yet.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking even in the meantime, just a couple of benches out towards the sidewalk or something else like that. So, you know, somebody wanted to sit down or something, that, oh, and then you got a nice grass area, you got some nice trees there. They put a couple benches in there. I don't think we're talking,
Right, that this natural green area, I think there would be an opportunity to do maybe some benches or hardscape improvements, whether that's phase 2 or whatever. I think that your eye is naturally drawn to this little green area, and if you have a perimeter of landscaping, as it matures, there would be a nice enclosure on 3 sides, and then you have, you know.
I mean, it'd be nice for the community if you know, the couple of policemen, if they're on break, they went outside and sat in the grass area. I mean, they went outside and sat in this area here nice and look out across town like that to show that, hey, we're part of the community here. We're people of the community, instead of trying to build a wall and block them off and, you know, we're the police and isolate. So I think we're in this issue between trying to build something that doesn't look like we're isolating the police from the community, that we're making the police part of the community. And I think that's part of where we come to the thing here. I know they want security and they want an 8-foot high fence to protect their equipment and stuff like that. But on the other hand, we're trying to make the police part of the community here and inviting to the community. And then building an 8-foot high black wall, it's like, oh, why black? I mean, why not something with some color in it or something, especially in the wall that's facing the street like that?
So I think from a design perspective, just from landscaping, black, doesn't have a tendency to not disappear. It just
Yeah.
kind of disappears.
Well, so yeah, I don't know if you want to make it disappear.
Well, I
I'm saying,
think the hope is to have the fence kind of disappear with the ensure landscaping, and
yeah,
what you see from Orchard is a nice
Yeah.
landscaped area versus a security
Yeah.
fence. So I wanted to do one really quick exhibit just to show you that, so I wanted to show you that we're not talking the vacuum. This is a comparison between downtown Antioch and Grace Lake. The dark gray areas are parking fields. And one of the things I hear about, you know, why can't we be more like Grace Lake? Well, you can see, you know, they have a lot less parking fields than we do. We have a lot of parking, we have a lot of asphalt in town. So I think it's important, and you brought up really good points to try to mitigate that. This is probably a necessity for our police department,
But it's also important, to try to mitigate that potential negative impact on
the impact that empty parking lots can have on good urban design.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't mention that.
Yeah.
And that's why the form-based code's there. It wasn't created in a vacuum. It's not being arbitrary.
it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. So like I said, I don't, I go along that, police need to have a secure area for their equipment and their cars like that. Cars are worth a lot of money. And building a little secure area to keep cars and equipment in like that, I see that as complete. I'm just thinking though, that somehow this is the front of the police station and to me, here's an opportunity that we can do something that makes the police department look inviting and not in with this area here. Yeah, and nothing is free. But I think, the village should be setting the standard for the rest of the community, and we expect the rest of the community to do things. We want it to be inviting. We want it to maintain that look and stuff like that. And now I think here's an opportunity that the village could show everybody else in town, hey, this is what you can do here. These are things that can be done to make us look inviting and that. And I think what we have here is a start, but I don't think it quite does the fact that it says, hey, this is a great town, we're welcoming, we got a great police department here, these are great people, they're friendly people and stuff like that. And somehow I don't think we're hitting that.
I mean,
With what we're doing here.
that's the direction of the commission. This is just a concept. So landscape plan could be clearly a lot more robust. Trust me, I can promise you it could be more robust. So I was trying to take into consideration the current budget. But you could do all kinds. You could do small knee walls around the edges, and to create an enclosure, defined area. I mean, a full landscape architect, this is planning staff did this. You had a landscape architect and gave them an unlimited budget. There's all kinds of wonderful things that we do.
But I think that, and you got the police station right next to it, which has a little parking spot in the area like that. And this now, to me, you look at this and you say, we got the police station here and their little parking lot out front, and now we got this area here. And to me, we're not looking at the whole area in front of the police department anymore. We're chopping it up into two pieces.
Well, they did specifically request that there be no connection between the existing parking lot in front of the police station in this area. I mean, we clearly don't want to make this all asphalt.
Oh, no, but I agree with that, but they keep their little parking space there, but somehow with the shrubbery and the trees like that, you're creating a barrier from going from
Oh, I see what you're saying.
this over.
Provide a connection.
Yeah, connection there, and I'm thinking, no, this should be, when you get all done, you got a police station with this parking over to the side of it.
Yeah, there's a line of shrubs right here along the parking lot of the police department. There could easily be, there's a sidewalk over here near the entrance area. There could easily be a nice connection.
Yes, I mean, that should all be, to me, you need to look at that whole area as one area, not two areas. This area here in front of the parking area and this part over here in front of the police station. But now that if you're gonna do that, then the whole thing should be one picture, not two pieces, but one piece, right? That's all I'm saying is so that on that,
I
that's all.
mean, if there's a consensus, we can clearly add stipulation to basically revise the landscape plan to integrate it into the overall police department campus.
Yeah, I think it should be. It's all one thing.
Madam Chair, can I be recognized? Hello, Michael, how are you? There's a couple questions. Is there and these are somewhat relevant, is there a specific need for this to be done with a construction schedule or some specific threat that caused this level of concern while we wanted this portioned off in this manner?
I think that the hope is to actually go out for bids and they have the construction season, believe it or not. You think 3 or 4 months or 5 months is a long time. It's not. By the time you get done with bids, this project probably won't start until midsummer. So the season could easily get away. So there's a requirement for this project to go out for bids. So it has to be, the plans have to be solidified. the engineering has to be completed, the landscape plan has to be completed, and then go out for bids, and then construction this summer. So that's the hope. It's actually in the budget this year. It's actually, so that general discussion that, i.e. the police department parking lot has to be discussed at the village board, not the actual plan, but just a line item, so.
Is there someone at the police department that's available tonight to talk about these conditions and or stipulations, so we don't need to send this back? Or have they informed you that if there's reasonable conditions or stipulations, that they would go forward with?
I think based on my discussions with the chief and village administrator, who's been very, very closely involved in this project, I think they were generally comfortable with the general landscape plan. In fact, I was, discussing as of this afternoon, that there was some comfortable, spending more money on a landscape plan. That was subject to removing the brick pilasters, but I told the village administrator this afternoon that, based on your feedback, we would try to work these issues out. So I'm confident that, if you made a stipulation, to refine the landscape plan, we can work those details out, consistent with your concerns, get it to the village board.
And then send it to, thank you. Send it to the village board for approval, which is exactly the same thing.
Yeah, my hope is that we don't bring this back because of the sensitivity of the timeline, because now we're gonna push back the bidding, probably to, late June, which may complicate this. So I apologize for the, for the timeline, but it is a tight timeline. The engineering was literally just completed. And just, this is not an inexpensive project, with regards to asphalt prices, where we've known where they are right now, because and even the decorative fence will be a substantial, significant expense. So this will not be an inexpensive project.
Ms. Sanfilippo?
And I think that the landscaping as it was presented is fine. I really would rather have the brick.
Brick pilasters.
Yeah, that's, I feel.
But that's an original plan, so as we speak,
But
that's
I think it helps. I mean, it's facing Orchard Street.
Right,
It's
that's what the
gonna be
plan shows.
visible. It's so close to downtown, and I think it really helps to break up that black fencing and to tie it in with the building. But as far as the green area and all that, I think that the landscaping that was presented far surpasses the requirement. And I think if I'm not sure, more needs to be added to that. And if it's a matter of the budget, I'd rather see the pilasters in there.
yeah, I might add some variety, maybe not additional plants, but some additional variety of, I like dogwoods because they show nice color in winter. There's a nice color in the winter, so there's all seasonal color with the dogwoods.
Ms. Madigan?
Again, an 8-foot fence is just really tall, and I think that the garden area looks very nice. How far setback is the fence going to be from actual Orchard Street?
It's over 25, 30 feet, it's set back,
Mhm.
It's a really deep lot. If you walk, it's a very deep lot. It's narrow, but it goes way back.
Mr. Turner?
Again, I think in concept, I can't speak for everyone, but I think as a board, we're struggling a little bit with holding other, the downtown to certain expectations and then asking for this. So I understand that and I get that. That being said, taking into account the police station and what they need from a security standpoint, I get that as well. I just, again, think that we have an opportunity. I agree with Commissioner Sanfilippo. I would like to see the brick in there. Ideally, I'd like the whole front wall to be brick, but I understand it just comes down to cost. So what does it cost to purchase, arborvitaes that are all, fully grown and completely wall off the whole front? I'm not saying that that's the path.
Right.
That is kind of where we would like to see something, there where, again, less is more, but just a strategic plan when it comes to the landscaping, and be able to, if you want to bring that to the village board, I wouldn't be comfortable with saying yes to this unless there was a lot of thought into that, so the visibility was just last thing we want is people walking down the street. Have you guys seen the eyesore in front of the police department? Like, that's where I was.
And then I just have one last question. If it's a 6-foot fence and you go to 8 foot, there's additional expense for that 2 feet.
Mhm.
So if you leave it at the 6 foot and leave the brick columns in there,
That's what I think.
you know, kind of,
I mean, originally it was 6 feet, so why did it go to 8 feet? I mean, is there some?
Well, it's not clear,
Security.
yeah, that perhaps was my mistake, you know, it's not clear by looking at the plans what the actual height is.
Okay.
So I was advised today 8 feet,
Uh-huh.
you know, the difference between 6 feet, 8 height, 8 feet from a security fence, I mean, that's really up to, I guess, the police department. I don't know what the 2 additional feet, that obviously that's, I guess, different between a non-secured site, secured site.
It's tall, 8 feet, that's tall, right in downtown.
That's tough.
No, they're talking all black.
6 foot, you can come over pretty easy, 8 foot, a little tougher.
Yeah.
Was it so close to downtown? I mean, it would be a different story, but.
Can I ask one more thing? I'm sorry. Okay, so the main idea behind this is to provide safety, right?
Security.
Security, okay. So, I know you know, asked about the benches and stuff, but do you really want people then? I guess if it's security more than safety, then,
Well, the park
there
is
is a
secured,
difference.
the park is secured, obviously, we have an area that's, you know, maybe 25% of the whole overall lot has been set aside for either landscape or some green space, that, and the purpose of that is not to have a security area. So, I mean, I think the purpose of that area, I think that provides us opportunities to try to mitigate the parking lot, that's how I see it. This area is here to mitigate the fact that we have to compromise, we need a parking lot for security purposes, but the mitigating factor is this proposed green area. So,
I just think you're gonna get people in the community that are gonna gather there, especially when you have stuff downtown. You know, we do the tree lighting and that whole area fills in, so from a safety perspective, right, if you have large groups gathering in there, that's different than the security piece, right? So
Mhm.
both have been set, so that's why I just want to get
Right.
clarification. So it's not a safety issue, it's just a security issue of securing the vehicles.
correct.
Then
correct.
that's different, okay.
and don't forget, there's also a lighting plan that's going into this for security purposes as well. Okay, so any further discussion? If not, I will need a motion to recommend the approval.
I don't know if you want me to make a motion, because I'll say I want it to be 6 feet with the.
That's,
Can we do that? I don't know.
You can add stipulation, that's what you.
yeah,
Right?
let's
Yeah,
ask
but I don't-
Jimmy's.
I don't think.
Sure.
I don't think a 6 foot fence is gonna work because they need to, I mean, the whole purpose of building the fencing and all is for a security standpoint. And a 6 foot fence doesn't give the security that they need an 8 foot fence to get security. So if you're gonna not give an 8 foot fence, then don't give any fence. Because 6 doesn't do them any good. And we can save a lot of cost if you tell them, hey, no fence.
But can we still have the stipulation in with the pilasters?
I would like that.
That's what I'm not comfortable with 8
Focus for
foot
the
black,
aesthetic look, because an 8 foot fence with the right aesthetic look can be,
right?
you can walk past it and not see it.
There's a lot of fencing, you know, so. Who wants to?
That doesn't need a stipulation, right?
No, it's actually, that's what the plan shows.
So
So it would be as presented with the pilasters.
Okay, hold on,
at the end of the day, what's it gonna look like? I guess that's my question.
It's gonna look like what this plan shows,
Let
right?
me rephrase, if we could describe exactly so the board knows what they're voting on.
Which I'll do in my staff report, so I'll make it quite clear.
But here,
Oh, for the record, what it will look like, the plan shows 4 pilasters, which will be 8 feet high, and there will be a decorative black aluminum fence, 20 feet separation. So each pilaster is approximately 20 feet. So you basically have 4 decorative brick pilasters or columns with a decorative fence in the front, and then the rest of the fence on the other 3 sides will be just decorative aluminum. There'll be no brick pilasters. The only pilasters will be facing Orchard Street. So
If we refer to those as the conditions and stipulations, would that be fair and reasonable? Okay. Alright, I would, and again, it's your guys' board, so, but if I was gonna make a motion on this, it would sound something like this. A motion to
Do we have any public comments?
oh,
No.
here you go. Again, if I was, it's not my board, but if I was going to make a motion, it would sound something like, motion to recommend the approval of one, a variance from the limitations of the fence height, and two, parking lot placement based on the village's form-based code with those of previously aforesaid conditions and stipulations.
And do we have someone making that motion?
I will make the motion.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Do you have a question?
I do, because you said the pylons were gonna be 8 feet.
they'll match,
Oh, the mesh, okay.
They'll ma-
okay,
they'll match.
You're right, okay. I was thinking 10 feet, then I was like,
no, no,
oh, no, that would be,
that'd be too
I'm
long.
sorry. Oh,
Okay. Okay,
I'll second.
second, okay. Any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Ms. Sanfilippo,
Yes.
Ms. Madigan,
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Henning. Okay, motion passed.
I will make a motion to adjourn this.
Okay,
Second.
all right. All in favor?
I,
I
Done.
So let's discuss it for a reason.
I do.
We passed it this way because of this.